Okay, guys, what's up? It's the special edition of Habs Banter. I'm here with my regular co-host, Marc Lescoutre, and we've got a special guest here with us today. It's our buddy Tim Rockburn. We gave you guys a bit of a breakdown of who Tim is last episode. He is the most neutral sports fan, not just hockey fan, the most neutral sports fan of all time. It's the most annoying thing in the world, and we brought him here because he's better looking than us and smarter. What's up, Tim?
All false. Not much, guys. What's going on? Can I explain myself for a second here?
Yeah, please.
I'm neutral because I like to watch the sport and react to what I'm seeing and remain unbiased. So when I watch professional athletes, that's what I'm watching. I don't care what jersey they're wearing. Because if they change teams, I'm changing teams. It's the way it goes.
All I heard out of your mouth there was, I'm boring.
Yeah, and for me, it didn't change anything. I still hate it.
Yeah, well, just, it's always sunny in my world.
Okay, boys, let's roll through this thing, okay? This is supposed to be a hot take. So we're going to go with a quick review of all the trades. I'm going to start, then Tim, then Marc.
There we go.
So, Anaheim Ducks trade Patrick Maroon to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Martin Burnett and a 2016 fourth-round pick.
The Arizona Coyotes trade Corey Potter to Nashville Predators for nobody.
The Anaheim Ducks trade Tim Jackman and a 2017 7th-rounder to Chicago in exchange for Corey Trop.
Ottawa Senators trade forward Shane Prince and a 2016 7th-round pick to the New York Islanders for a 2016 3rd-round pick.
Hey, I've heard that guy.
Yep.
The Montreal Canadiens trade Devontae Smith-Pelley to the New Jersey Devils for Stefan Matteau, but not the good one.
No, his son. Perfect. The Minnesota Wild trade Brett Sutter to the Kings for Scott Sabrin.
New York Islanders trade forward Taylor Beck to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Marc-Andre Piché.
Ooh. New Jersey Devils trade Lee Stempniak to the Boston Bruins for a 2016 4th-round pick and 2017 2nd-round pick.
Panthers trade Brandon Peary to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for lost my spot. Boom. 2016 6th-round pick.
Buffalo Sabres trade forward Jamie McGinn to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for 2016 conditional 3rd-round pick.
Carolina Hurricanes trade John Michael Lyles to the Boston Bruins for Anthony Kamara, a 2016 3rd-round pick and 2017 5th-round pick.
Flames trade Chris Russell to the Dallas Stars for Jyrki Jokibaka, Brent Pollock, and a 2016 conditional 2nd-round pick.
Yuki, not going to play here. The New Jersey Devils trade defenseman Eric Jonah to the Colorado Avalanche on Monday for 2017 3rd-round pick. I don't know where the Monday came from.
Arizona Coyotes trade Michael Bacher to the Colorado Avalanche for Alex Tanguay, Connor Bleakley, and Kyle Wood.
The Blackhawks trade Dennis Robertson to Carolina in exchange for a goaltender Drew McIntyre.
Pittsburgh Penguins trade forward Sergei Plotnikov to Arizona Coyotes in exchange for the forward Matthias Plachta and a 2017 7th-round pick.
So now that we've listed all those off, can I just say a lot of big names went today, eh?
There's a bunch of blockbusters.
Just wild.
Yeah.
One of the busiest trade deadline days in years.
Okay, so
I'm glad
boys.
I spent all day watching TV.
Yeah, I knew you would do more prep than Marc and I.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marc, I'm going to start with you. Give me a player that was dealt today that could have helped the Habs.
All right. For me, the one that I think would have helped the most is Brandon Peary. He's still young. That's yours. Yeah, boom. We all picked the same guy, didn't we?
Tim, did you pick him too?
I did.
Okay.
I think it's a consensus.
It is. It makes sense, though, because the guy's only 24. He's an RFA. I think he's an RFA. And
you're right.
Last year he scored 22 goals. This year he's got, I think, 11 goals and another 11 assists. He's the only guy that really went that didn't go to the Habs that I would say is like a actual guy that can contribute now, but he's still young enough that like a team like the Habs should pick up.
You pretty much summarized it perfectly. He's a guy who can play a little bit up and down the lineup, but he's got a lethal shot. Tim, which way does he shoot?
He's a lefty, buddy.
So Tim, also another thing that I want to bring up. Tim knows which way every single player on the Habs or in the league actually shoots. I didn't mean to say Habs, but yeah, any other team in the league.
Yeah,
Tim knows every single player. And so yeah, just to summarize, Brandon Peary, yeah, like Marc said, 24 years old. He's got a bit of size, right? He's 6 foot, 185 pounds or something. He's got 75 points in 157 career NHL games. Something that'll help us. Tim, you got anything to add to that one or what?
Yeah, I mean, he only played 45 games last year and scored 22 Genos. So that's pretty. How's this stat line? This is one of the best stat lines ever.
I know.
22 goals, 2 assists. Like,
that's the best.
You hear the expression of all you do is score, but literally all this guy does is score.
Yeah. I love it.
I mean, I think you just look at the return you got for him. Like, you only had to give up a 6th-round pick to a 24-year-old center who has proven to score. And he's got decent size. He's 6 foot. Like, I don't know. Every team's built up the middle now. The Habs have kind of some glaring holes up the middle. And what would a 6th-round pick be? Like, I don't know. I thought anybody could have snagged him. Habs would have been nice to get him, but
I just don't
good
know
for
if there's
Anaheim, I
like
guess.
I just don't know if there's red flags there. Like I don't think I wonder if his RFA status and like the money that he could get come like with his injury, him coming off of injury now, like when is 20 games left with the team enough for them to evaluate what Brandon Peary is within their organization, enough to take it to arbitration to pay the guy. I think that's maybe the only thing that made other teams hesitate. But at the same time, I'm thinking like, is he not worth the gamble at an RFA status? Like, I don't know. It's not like he's going to UFA. I don't know.
Especially with the fact there was a 6th-rounder. Like that was arguably one of the biggest steals of the day.
Right.
Not necessarily the best player that
like,
went, but yeah, that was just 6th-round pick is peanuts.
Right.
The thing is, we know Brandon Peary can play in the NHL, whether he's a bottom 6 guy or second line guy. Right. We know he's an NHL player. That 6th-round pick, like we talked earlier today about what are the chances of a 6th-round pick making an NHL club? I mean, it's
like 10%.
So, anyway, it was I don't know. I thought it was
weird
crazy
move.
that he was even on the
weird
trading
move.
block.
Yeah, weird move.
I almost think part of it is since Florida added so many pieces over the last few days, leading up to today, that I guess they had not any more space in their lineup, but you still think they can get something better for him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when Peary got hurt, Trocheck stepped in for him and is having a career year. Then it pushed Peary into further down the lineup and then in and out of the lineup, and he's not playing in the role that he needs to be playing in. So
that's right.
I think he was put in a position to fail, but they don't need him. Like, Florida is one of the best teams in the East. They don't need him. They have, Trocheck's 2 years younger and putting up more numbers. So, yeah, they could move him.
Okay. Let's move on to a deal that didn't happen today, but obviously affects the Habs, that some people clearly people have been talking about since it happened on the weekend. So Dale Weiss and Thomas Fleischmann for a 2nd-round pick in 2018 and Philippe Desormeaux. I know, Mark, you had a bit of hesitations at the beginning. I think I've convinced you to change your tune.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Basically, my only hesitation, like the 2018 2nd-round draft pick at first for me was a big sour point, I guess you could say. But when you think about getting a 2nd-rounder for Weiss is what you would have kind of expected the market to be, and then to get a serviceable guy in Philippe Desormeaux, who by all accounts, like, it looks like he's a solid 2-way guy, bottom 6, which, I mean, obviously it's a dime and a dozen for bottom 6 forwards on the Habs, but he's someone that can contribute in the future, and Fleischmann realistically had no trade value. So
people are making me so mad about this trade. Like, people complaining about this trade are making me very, very frustrated. Like, especially after today. So we just talked about Brandon Peary going somewhere for a 6th-round pick. What do you think Dale Weiss was worth? If Dale Weiss hadn't been dealt, Bergevin got a call today, was like, I will give you a 2nd-round pick for Dale Weiss in 2020, I would have taken it. Chicago, you're not going to get, from a buying team, you're not going to get a high draft pick. So you take a 2nd-round pick for Dale Weiss, and then you think of Thomas Fleischmann, who owes the Habs nothing, was a PTO, signed for like whatever it was, owes us nothing. We owe him nothing. And we end up flipping him for this Desormeaux kid who's 23 years old, a serviceable bottom 6 forward with potential, a former 1st-round pick. Like, I don't know what there is to complain about.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
I saw a big sigh out of Tim.
Plus, just one last thing on from me on that is, like, a 2018 2nd-round pick from the Blackhawks might be a better pick than it is this year anyways.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. I mean, who cares, first of all? But the big thing is, Thomas Fleischmann, like, that's exactly why PTOs exist. You sign them to 1-year deals and try to flip them for something else.
Yes.
We've seen the Toronto Maple Leafs do it to the nth degree. They're just killing it right now in terms of collecting draft picks, but we'll get that later. Yeah, I mean, like, so Thomas Fleischmann started the year well. I actually was pretty stoked for how he was playing, but then just all of a sudden it seems like he's wearing cement boots. He can't keep up, which I thought at the start of the year he was flying. So that's the difference between a guy who's playing for his future, gets his contract, and then I think he just got fatigued and I don't think fell off, but you also look at what all the stuff surrounding the team in general. A lot of the guys are just not playing up to their potential, and he's a guy that is easy enough to flip to a contending team for depth. He's probably not going to play, but he's a depth guy in case someone gets hurt. So
Tim's right though. He legitimately looks like he's skating in molasses.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
I don't know what happened.
He's looked so slow, and actually Tim summed it up beautifully. Like he was playing like a guy who looked like he was like playing for his future, needed a contract, got his contract, started on fire, and then it's like he's in cruise control ever since. And I thought he's deserved to go in and out of the lineup. He didn't seem very happy about it. I don't know that he necessarily enjoyed his time in Montreal. Now he's got a chance at a Stanley Cup. So like whatever, Fleischmann's happy. I'm more than happy taking on Desormeaux for him. I don't know. I'm just happy with it overall.
Yeah, and good for Weiss as well to get a chance at a cup contending team too. Like that guy plays with his heart and soul, and he's played well for us in the playoffs too.
And there's already talk of him coming back and like potentially signing here. Yeah. Apparently, his asking price a month ago was $3.75, which is absurd.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Not a chance. Are we paying him like close to under $1 million? Yeah, we're under $1 million away from what Pacioretty's making.
Yeah,
forget it.
Yeah. No, I don't think signing him, especially on the open market, not a good idea. It's going to be what?
No, I mean I understand that.
We got the giggles.
Habs fans get attached to like Dale Weiss, just like Ottawa Sens fans get attached to Chris Neil. Like, but these guys are so replaceable. If he's going to go and ask for over $3 million, like you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Let someone
just by pulling on the heartstrings of the fans because this guy started the year, scored a couple goals that he's not actually capable of scoring on a regular basis. But yeah, I mean, if you get him back for a good contract, that's wonderful because the fans love him. He's happy here, and he's a big physical guy. But you got to be smart with how you're spending your money right now, and
especially at the depth,
like said, roles. And does he want to come back? I mean, he probably wants to come back, but.
He loves it here.
Does he want to come back and play for Michel Therrien, or does he want to wait and see what happens?
Yeah, Dale
with
Weiss
the coaching situation.
Yeah, Dale Weiss isn't getting first line minutes with anyone else.
He's like he loves Michel Therrien.
Yeah, Michel Therrien's like his best bud.
Okay, let's move on. Well. Let's move on to the Habs trade from today. Okay, Devontae Smith-Pelley is shipped out. Oh, a big jug of water there for Tim. Hey, Devontae Smith-Pelley is traded straight up for Stéphane Matteau. Now, Smith-Pelley was crying after being traded.
He was.
In his interview. He looked emotional. You know what? I think, like, as much as it's like, I don't know, because I'm emotionally attached to the team, I get a little worked up with stuff like this. Like, I was watching him and, like, I was getting emotional about it. And it's not like I didn't like Smith-Pelley throughout his time here. Like, I don't like Smith-Pelley as a player. I don't think he brought anything that was effective to the team. And clearly the organization saw that too. I think it was worth taking a shot on Smith-Pelley, especially for a guy like Sakach, although I didn't feel like it at the time. And now Bergevin has owned up to another one of his mistakes, which he's done. And he's now flipped Smith-Pelley off for Matteau, who's got 1 year left of RFA status. Smith-Pelley's contract, he's an RFA at the end of the year.
Yep.
But yeah, I do get a little bit emotional when I see stuff like that. Even when Weiss was traded and PK was all sad because Dale Weiss is gone. Like I get a little emotional, after seeing Smith-Pelley. It adds the human side to the trade deadline a little bit,
Sure.
Like I don't know.
Well, I mean, we're here for you, bro.
Thanks, guys.
Anytime.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want to talk, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
So here's the deal with Matteau. Okay, he's a former first-round pick. 22 years old. He's got a cap hit of $612,000 next year, and he'll become an RFA. He was born in Chicago, and he grew up in Quebec. So here's what Hockey DB says, okay? I'm just going to read it. I'm going to read it to you. Matteau plays the game with a lot of energy, passion, and intensity. He uses his big, strong frame to play an in-your-face physical style along the boards and the corners. While not blessed with elite-level skill, he has decent hands, a heavy shot, and knows how to create space for himself by protecting the puck in the offensive zone. Matteau is well-schooled defensively and should become a good penalty killer with his good speed and aggressive nature. His borderline style has gotten him into penalty trouble. So the two things I take from that Smith-Pelley really didn't bring to the team was he can't skate and he
True.
can't shoot. Whereas, like, by what I just
True.
read, it sounds like Mateau can skate and he can shoot
And play a bit better
Perfect.
defensively as well.
and play better.
Yeah, I mean,
Any thoughts on this trade? Like, what do you think?
Go ahead, Scoots.
all right. So I think we know that DSP is not a great fit in Montreal. Mateau might be a better option. So at least it's like a guy who's still young, could turn into something for the Habs. Obviously, he's been a bit of a disappointment in New Jersey thus far, being a first-round pick, and I think he's got 40 career games and 5 points out of that, including I think a goal in 20 games this year.
Right.
So the production hasn't been there yet, but it's another young piece and it's a physical guy, and I guess it remains to be seen. But I think to flip DSP for someone that could turn into a valuable contributor to the team is a good move.
Agreed. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think, they flipped Seacatch for Devontae Smith-Pelley because they knew what Seacatch was. They didn't like it for their team, so they flipped it for another guy. They thought it would be a fit. They had to look at him, didn't like him, so they flipped him for another prospect. Like, they're not losing anything by doing this. And yeah, you get to look at another guy who's probably a similar playing style, Devontae Smith-Pelley, but hopefully in the long run more effective. And as long as he's comfortable playing that role, because that's really all I've been saying or been reading is sometimes he tries to play a role that he's not actually designed to play. He should be in that third and fourth line checking role, skate hard, hit people, win battles, and that's really the only reason they brought him in. So they pick up Mike Brown off waivers to basically do exactly what Devontae Smith-Pelley would do if he's actually dressed in the lineup. And then he flipped Smith-Pelley for, another prospect, first round pick.
Yeah.
So
and
I think it's
the only negative thing that I see is that and I can't speak to how he is now and whether he's mature, is that apparently there are a lot of like immaturity, like red flags from playing in junior, bit of a hothead, bit of a crazy. Obviously Bergevin feels like either that has passed. He's, from what we know about Bergevin, he likes to do his research on players. So for all we know, that's behind him, or it's something the Habs are going to try and work on with him.
Yeah.
Either way, I think you guys both summed it up well. It's kind of obviously a very low risk move. Exactly. We're now going to take a chance on another player that could fill that void more longer term because we know Smith-Pelley won't. So on to Mike Brown, which Tim just briefly talked about. Pierre Lebrun tweeted when they first claimed him. They said Habs picked up Mike Brown because they wanted a little more protection and toughness for their younger players in the lineup the rest of the year. I would care, just before I move on from the whole fighting and protecting people, a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, John Scott. Why don't you bring up John Scott? Well, one, John Scott can't skate.
Yeah, big time.
As well as Mike Brown can. Two,
guys, wait. He's an all-star. Did you see that?
Okay, get over that. All
okay.
right? Like, that's enough.
Man, he went bar down on a breakaway in the All-Star game. Go on.
That was a sick G.
It was a nice goal.
Anyway, so before we keep going with this Mike Brown thing, I just want to point out that John Scott, as pointed out by All Habs, the Ice Caps hockey report, he's played 10 games or something. He's only got one fight. He's not going out there and protecting younger guys. Out there are already protecting themselves. So, bringing up John Scott's not going to solve that issue. Plus, Mike Brown's a better hockey player than John Scott, so let's just leave it at that. And I would care a heck of a lot less about Mike Brown being picked up if I didn't think Michel Therrien was going to play him 10 to 12 minutes a game. That's the other thing I'm worried about. I don't want a guy like Mike Brown. Like Therrien rolls the four lines, and he rolls the four lines. He doesn't double shift players. He doesn't put somebody else in there just to put somebody on the pine so they don't play for 10 minutes of the game. But that's what's going to happen with Mike Brown. He's going to play 10 minutes a game. All the Habs fans are going to be ridiculously upset, myself included, and it's going to take playing time away from some of the younger guys.
If his role is to protect young guys, then I guess the positive thing you can take from it is maybe they're actually going to let the young guys play. Bring up Hudon for a few games, let these younger guys like Galchenyuk get more ice time. And so hopefully if you're going to flip it to a positive, that maybe they'll actually give the young guys a chance to perform.
That's why you're the neutral fan.
Yeah. This is what we need. We need more of that.
Yep.
Well, at the end of the day, Mike Brown is a horrible hockey player, but if he's,
it must be a weird.
No one fights anymore anyway. John Scott hasn't fought in the A because no one wants to fight John Scott.
I think I read today that Mike Brown actually has more fights this season than all the Habs combined.
Oh yeah.
Which I believe.
Well, probably.
Well,
He's
yeah.
going to fight on the Habs right now.
Well, Beaulieu's dropped the mitts a couple times.
Yeah.
Subban's dropped the mitts once.
Yeah, and you don't want Subban fighting.
No.
No.
Not as much as we can avoid it.
So I guess that's another positive of having him. And there's another point I was going to bring up, but now I forget. But it must have been a weird day for Mike Brown. Like you literally get traded to the team who's in your barn. So he literally just picked up his gear, brought it into the visitors' dressing room, and then was on his team. Took the morning skate with the Habs.
Yeah, and then he's got his debut tonight.
Yeah, so at least the Habs should win because they should have the full game plan. So
yeah.
You know,
insider trading.
Like, do we actually expect this guy to play?
Yeah, he's in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, he's in.
He's a Michel Therrien kind of guy.
Such a Michel Therrien kind of guy. It hurts.
That's a recipe for success.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I just want to talk briefly. A couple of All Habs writers and team members have been following this closely as we were approaching the deadline of 3 p.m. There's a paper transaction that needs to take place for players that are eligible to play in the AHL playoffs. Okay, so this transaction has to send them down before 3 p.m. And they have to be on the AHL roster at 3 p.m. And then they can, from what I understand, anyway, they can be called right back up and play with the Habs and then still be eligible for the AHL playoffs. The Habs sent no one down. So nobody was on the AHL roster that's currently with the Habs. So that means McCarron, Ellis, Bartley, Andrighetto, Lescoutre, Desormeaux, and Jacob Villarose. Whoa, hotline bling. So all those players are unable to play in the AHL playoffs should the Ice Caps, I think they're 5 points out right now, should the Ice Caps make a good push and make it. Thoughts?
It's stupid. Like why wouldn't
so dumb?
Why wouldn't you just make that move? Like it doesn't
just
impact
paperwork.
anything.
Listen, if how I understand it is literally a simple paper transaction, if that's all it is, then Bergevin literally just said to the AHL, "We hate you." He literally just said to Sylvain Lefebvre, "You have no chance of making the playoffs for the 4th year in a row because you're a terrible coach to begin with." But he literally said to all the players that are currently down there, "We hate you."
Yeah.
You don't stand a chance.
The only thing I can see is is there some kind of, I doubt there is, but is there some kind of limit to the number of transactions you can make between the AHL to the NHL? Because if there is, then I can see, we've had a lot of injuries this year. We've brought a lot of guys up. I don't know, but
there's got to be something.
There's got to be something that we don't know about because it's frustrating if it's just a simple like you said, a little paper transaction. Spend 15 minutes of your day and do it. Have someone do it. And problem solved. Maybe they don't make the playoffs, but at least, why would you burn that bridge?
Agreed.
Yeah,
so,
it makes no sense. But
so let's move on off of this topic because really neither of us are educated on it, and we just wanted to get mad.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So I want you each to pick a word to summarize the Habs' day, and I just want you to give 1 or 2 sentences to justify it, if you want to, or if you just want to give your one word, that's fine. And we're going to start with Marc.
I was kind of jumping around between a few words, and I just kind of jumping back to one now. And it's 2 words, I guess, but let down.
I told you one.
I know. Let down. I'll just erase the space in between and invent a new word. Let down. Desormeaux this morning was apparently being shocked by the Habs. So
we were all a little bit excited.
So here's the thing, and I should have known better because. Tons of guys get shopped and nothing happens, but I'm oh my god. You go from, he's getting shopped, that's interesting, to he's gonna get traded today. You just jump to that conclusion, and that's the conclusion I jumped to about 75 seconds after I initially read it. I was nope, this is gonna happen, despite he's injured, should have 0 value, and gets paid $3.5 million. No, it's gonna happen, he's gonna get traded. Silly me. So I was a little let down when that never went down, but what can you do? That's my sentence.
Yeah, I think he's a bio candidate. I was also really excited about Desormeaux possibly on the move. Didn't happen. That's life. I didn't expect it to happen. I honestly don't think he's an NHL player at this point. So I didn't expect him to move unless Toronto was willing to take him and a draft pick for nothing in return. I was literally okay with that. For a bag of pucks or something, I don't care. Just get him out of town. and hopefully, I don't know. I hope the guy lands on his feet. I'm sure he's a good dude, but I hope he's a buyout candidate.
He is known for being a hardworking guy, first on the ice, last off it, all that.
Yep. Yep.
Good on him. Like I don't have anything personally against him, but he's
Yep.
just not what we need.
Tim, do you have thoughts on that, or do you want to hop into your word?
Yeah, well, I mean, shopping David Desharnais and finding a buyer is a totally different thing. And I think you guys, well, throughout your previous podcast and today you've said it, like, I don't even think at any dollar value this guy is an NHL caliber player. And even if they trade him and retain half his salary, which is the most they're able to retain,
Right.
people still don't want him at that price. Like, this guy seems, well, when healthy, it seems like he's the guy that Michel Therrien's double shifting. Like, why is this guy already on the ice? Always.
Yeah. No,
Anyway.
for sure.
So, in a perfect world today, you find some majestic way to trade Desharnais and maybe bundle him with Emelin. You like
Some
that?
majestic way.
I love
Yeah,
it.
man. Well, maybe David Clarkson's waiting in the wings somewhere. Lou Lamoriello wants to bury him somewhere. I don't know. Like, you leave trade deadline, you still have Desharnais on your payroll, you still have Emelin on your payroll, and these are two guys that are probably untradeable, but for Habs fans, I'm sure they would have liked to see them on the move. My word was hesitation, and I don't think that Habs management, or even Habs fans for that matter, really have a clear idea of, am I a buyer? Am I a seller? Like, what are we at this point?
Yep.
We've seen the glaring holes with Carey Price being out. I feel like part of them says, like, oh, well, once we get Carey Price back, Stanley Cup contender. I think a lot of people would go another way and say that even with Carey Price, they're probably a playoff team, but they're still a ways away from being a true Stanley Cup contender. There's players out there that could have improved their team, or at least you could have taken a look at them, like Brandon Peary. I think they kind of just sat still and didn't really make any moves, hesitated, let all these players move, and they're still no further ahead. And I wouldn't call it a rebuild. They definitely need to rebuild. They have some great players like Galchenyuk, like Gallagher, like Subban, Eller, Pacioretty. But they do need to retool like what Boston did over the last year. Like Boston had one down year and everyone's like, oh, this team's going to be terrible for the next 5 years. Like, no, they drafted 12 times last year and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs. So I don't know.
I think
that's my two thoughts
on Boston. I think they traded a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth today.
Wow.
I think they traded. I think they traded.
Yeah, they did give up a lot.
Different years, but I think they managed to trade a lot of draft picks. That was a good word, Tim. I think obviously not being in the GM chair, it's hard to say like whether hesitation was true or not. Like it's hard to see like whether he was like how hard he was working the phones, how he wasn't working the phones. But I get it. Like are they further ahead today? No, I get it.
No, not at all.
So my word, which I'm interested to see if you guys disagree, is expected.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So for a couple of reasons, okay? So we knew they were going to move Weiss. We knew they were going to move Fleischmann. He jumped on a deal that I thought was fantastic return for the two of them. Okay, so Marc Bergevin, in my eyes, did a good job with the two assets that he had to move. He sold. People wanted him to be a seller. He sold. Who else does he have to sell? Gilbert? Gonzo.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That was it.
That's it. He's gone. He's gone. He's done. So he sold the two guys. He got extreme value. No, I shouldn't go as far to say extreme. He got good value.
This is the difference between Tim and Corey right now. Extreme value. Well, yeah, I think he got some good value. Yeah.
He got good. So he got good value for the two players.
Satisfactory.
He was completely handcuffed with the injuries to Petrie. No, but with the injuries to Petrie, Beaulieu, and then ultimately Gilbert, could he really afford to move Emelin? So then Ellis moves into that spot, and then you call up, I guess, Darren Dietz to play it the rest of the year, and then the AHL's completely toast. Yeah. Like he was so handcuffed, and then he managed to move Devontae Smith-Pelley, which is like Fine. It's a great move. I thought Bergevin had a fine day. I don't think we need to jump on him. I thought it was what happened was expected. We knew Fleischmann was going to move. We knew Weiss was going to move. We knew he would try and do something else like depth-wise. We knew he wasn't going to get a top six forward. We thought maybe Nail Yakupov. Nail Yakupov didn't move. Jordan Eberle didn't move. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins didn't move. So it's not like he missed out on one of the Edmonton guys. I don't think he missed out on a ton of players. Like, okay, Brandon Peary, like he could have maybe given up a pick for Brandon Peary, sure. But obviously there were some red flags there, and I honestly I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with expected.
Solid.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't expect them to be a major player today simply because of the position they're in. Like they're not a clear-cut buyer or a clear-cut seller. They still have a 10% chance of making the playoffs, so that's better than some other teams. And we've seen it happen. Now it's probably not going to happen.
And to add to that, a lot of teams did nothing. Okay, like Vancouver. Vancouver tried to dump Hamzoos for nothing, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So that's I don't think Bergevin just sat on his hands. Perhaps he spent his entire day trying to move Desharnais, and to me, that's a positive move going forward if that's what he spent his time doing today, even if successful or not.
Who knows?
Okay,
so let's to say, right?
Exactly. So let's go into some let's just do final thoughts. You can do a winner, loser, whatever you want to do, sort of round table thing. Mark, you want to start us?
Sure. I thought you mentioned Vancouver there. I thought they were a big loser. They couldn't move anyone. Like you have to figure there had to be a deal on the table that they probably maybe should have budged on and just been like, all right, we need to make a move because the number of UFAs, I think it was like 6 or 7 UFAs they had or something like that they didn't, not a single one went.
And
go on.
Two of them very sought after.
Apparently. Yeah, for sure. So I thought Vancouver kind of dropped the ball. I thought what Arizona did in the Bodker trade was good. I agree. They moved a guy who obviously they have no plans on re-signing. They pulled his contract offer, and they got back. They're still in the hunt for a playoff spot. I don't know exactly where they are in the standings off the top of my head, but they're in the hunt, so they still get back a veteran player like Tanguay and 2 prospects.
Yep.
2 prospects that are unsigned, so they're not counting to their 50 contract limit. And from all accounts, I've read a bit on Bleakley today, and from all accounts, he sounds like a pretty decent 2-way center with a bit of upside. So I think they won big time on that trade, and I thought it was interesting that they were able to do that.
I agree. Bodker is a bit of an overrated player.
I think so too. He has more than anyone in the league. He has more power play time than anyone in the league.
Yeah,
more than Ovechkin, more than anyone. Like
he doesn't drive puck possession. He doesn't he doesn't take the puck away. He's not you know what I mean? Like he's very skilled. He's a skilled player. Never put it all together. He's going to make a ton of money on the open market.
He will.
And you know what? I agree with you. Arizona did well in their return. They ended up getting a player to replace Bodker immediately in the lineup and 2 prospects. Congrats, Arizona. I'd take that every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Arizona's got one of the craziest prospect farms in the entire league right now. Probably the best crop of prospects, and they just added more to it. Flip a guy that they're not going to sign anyway. So
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, they definitely had a good day. And it was good for Colorado, too, to add a skilled guy like Bodker. They're loaded offensively, so maybe they'll find something in him that he wasn't being able to get in Arizona.
Could be.
They just have nothing on the back end, that team. They're struggling on the defensive side, man. It's awful.
Horrible. Well, they just play pond hockey. I've only watched a couple of their games, but there's, we talk about structure and things like that. They just fly around there and, they're all offense, so.
Sounds fun.
For me.
Timbo?
I'm going to do a winner and loser in each conference, if that's fine. In the West, I think it's absolutely clear that Chicago won the trade deadline. And they're already winning they're first place in the Western Conference. Then they pick up Ladd, Weiss, Fleischmann, and Ehrhoff without giving up anything off their current NHL roster, basically. They gave up prospects. They gave up Dano and Desormeaux. I'm sorry, that was a tough one. But, this team's just gearing up for another playoff run, straight to the Stanley Cup, and they're already in first place.
Yeah.
Loser in the West, to me, has to be St. Louis. This team is already destroyed with injuries, don't really have a clear-cut number 1 goalie. And the Western Conference top 5 right now, Chicago, Dallas, St. Louis, LA, and Anaheim, they're the only team out of those 5 that didn't do a single thing. So I don't know what they're doing. How do they look at those 5 teams or 4 other teams near them and say, yeah, we can beat one of those in a playoff series? Like, I don't know. To me, it's crazy. In the East, I think the loser was Tampa Bay. Still stuck with Jonathan Drouin. Not that it's a problem, but do you want that distraction heading into a potential playoff run? Plus, they're
his
only in
value is
4th
just
place.
dropping too. The longer this goes on, this value drops.
And
Totally agree.
Also, he's enough of a distraction along with potentially losing Stamkos. So,
right. So you have a lot of uncertainty there. And this was their one final chance to kind of use Drouin's not coming back, but you can use him to make your team better for the next couple months and a playoff push. Obviously, Yzerman has his asking price, and he's decided not to waver on that, but it might end up biting them in the butt. And Florida, I think, in the East was a winner as well. I mean, they picked up a couple depth guys in Kindle, Purcell, and Hoodler. Not significant players necessarily, but I think it's all about depth in the playoffs. Guys are going to get hurt, so you pick up a guy like Hoodler who's proven that he can score and play a two-way game. Purcell's just a 3rd or 4th line guy on a good team, and Kindle's probably a 7 or 8 defenseman. But if someone gets hurt, he slides right in. So,
yep, agreed. Mark's got a smirk on his face, like he's ready to say something.
No comment.
Okay, so I didn't prepare any winners or losers. Obviously, Chicago was a big winner in my eyes. I thought Anaheim did decently well, obviously, with the Peary move, and I think moving Malone was a big thing too. I will say losers is trade deadline day.
Yeah, it was boring
as a whole.
No kidding.
No Hamzoos trade, no Drouin, no Eriksson. Parenteau, they weren't even able to flip. McGinn finally got moved. I had him on my list, but he was a late move. And Verbata.
Yeah.
So you can put Vancouver. Like, I agree with Mark. Like, Vancouver was atrocious today. Our good buddy Devin is a big Vancouver fan. He was texting me all day, just like so worked up about the lack of moves. I'm pretty sure he's eating his sorrows away tonight. Sucks.
Can I throw in one more loser?
Yeah, sorry, I cut you off.
That's okay. New York Islanders, decided to load up for their playoff push by trading for Shane Prince, and still not trading Travis Hamonic, which clearly is not going to be a player for their future. I thought that was a ball dropped, but anyway.
You know what? I think Hamonic's a player that they'll be able to use throughout the playoffs. Like, I don't think Hamonic's a guy that you want to necessarily trade at this time of year when you're in a playoff hunt.
He's got term too, so
I think Shane Prince is a very serviceable player, and I think he's still a prospect, and there's underlying he's Tim's gonna hate me for saying this probably, but he is an analytical. He is a strong analytical player from a puck possession perspective, and he actually leads the Senators in a lot of those categories and a lot of the per 60 rates too. And I think he's a player that giving up a 3rd round pick for some depth right now. The likelihood of a 3rd round pick for Ottawa turning into Shane Prince is a lot less likely. I know Dave Cameron's not a big Shane Prince fan, and that's fine. And I know they dealt him for the sole purpose of Dave Cameron's not going to use him, so we might as well get something for him. But I still think the Islanders win that deal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would tell you that Prince never really got a good shot in Ottawa. So
yeah.
Anyway, I think he's miscast. He's not good enough to play in their top 6 because Ottawa actually, has a lot of weaknesses, but it's not in their top 6. They have some pretty talented players. And when you take a guy like Shane Prince and throw him on your 4th line, he's just not going to succeed. So yeah, maybe a fresh start for him. We'll actually see what kind of potential he really does have. But I just think looking at the Islanders, their roster compared to the other top teams in the East, if they actually think they're going to win some playoff series with their current squad, don't see it happening.
Do you have any other thoughts before I cut you off again?
No, it's okay. I just stumbled across this. It really doesn't have a whole lot. I don't know if we've talked about it though. So
enlighten us.
Just looking ahead to the draft, the Toronto Maple Leafs have 12 picks this year. and 28 picks over the next 3 seasons.
You know what? They're doing it right though. Like I think for Leafs,
They absolutely are.
They have a direction. It's okay to like. It's finally like for Leafs fans. I feel comforted for them because they have a plan put in place. They're structured. They know where they're headed, and it's something to cheer for. Like when you trade Sean Matthias for a fourth round pick, people are so stoked because like we're on the right track. You know.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
I almost want to give them the main win overall for trading Roman Polak and Spalling for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I have to just shout out to Lou Lamoriello.
For sure. So just to wrap up some of my thoughts, I think Bergevin's sort of lack of moves for I don't want to say for like trying to make a big push for a top 6 forward, which he may have because not a lot of top 6 forwards. Anyway, no top 6 forwards with term were moved today. However, it could be indicative that he doesn't think the problem's on the roster. He hasn't tinkered with it all too much. He didn't trade a massive name. So my thinking is perhaps it is true that Terrier's days are numbered. At the end of the season, he's toast regardless of what happens in these last 20 games. I mean, I know we all hope that's the case.
Yeah.
So that's just another point that I wanted to bring up. And another one, too, is that Bergevin, because I know a lot of people are harping on him, and I have a bit this season, too, with some of the decisions he's made, but he's also owned up to them. When you look at Cassian, you look at, Semin when he parted with him, and now you look at Smith-Pelley and moving on from him today as well. I thought, Bergevin, although he makes mistakes, he is at least owning up to them and trying to fix them any way that he can, right? Not that I'm convinced Semin was a mistake yet. I'm still a sticking point with me. But anyway, that just about does it for us, boys. You have any other thoughts here? Hey, thanks a lot, Tim, for joining us. We appreciate your insight. We're gonna have to have you on. We're gonna have to have you on more. You're a little more articulate than Marc and I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
So don't forget to
majestic.
Majestic. So don't forget, you can check us out on allhabs.net on the multimedia tab. You can subscribe to the video of the podcast on YouTube. You can also subscribe to the audio of the podcast so you don't have to see our stupid faces on iTunes. We've got another episode that we're recording this Sunday, so stay tuned, peeps. Later.
Later, boys.